Well, hello everybody. It's good to see all of you. Welcome back if you've been here before, and if you're new, then I'm glad you found me. Um, my name is John Clayton. I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, and I've been clean and sober since February 21st, 2021. It's what is it? January 20th today. Wow, crazy. The month is like literally almost over. The spirit of service is today's basic text reading. Another personal story. This addict from Iran was the most important person in the room. For 2 years before he got clean, none of his. Now he devotes himself to NA, sponsorship, the steps, and service. I am an addict from Iran. I was introduced to NA in 1996 at a detention house. The introduction led me to a new way of life, not out of willingness, but out of powerlessness and desperation. I had arrived at the center of nearly unconscious and slept for 2 complete days. I had smuggled in some drugs, but when I went to use them, they were gone. It seemed to me that all my roommates were high, even though they all denied it. I was very I was very agitated and disappointed. I endured the pain without complaining, but the desire to use was with me the whole time I was there. Now that I have been clean for a number of years, I am able to see where I was. Sorry, I am able to see there was evidence of the disease of addiction long before I started using. I didn't like my own belongings or even my parents' names. I always wanted to be someone else. I wanted to be powerful, capable, and prestigious. I wanted to be a grown up. At age 11, I smoked my first cigarette. It burned my throat badly, yet I felt like a man. It helped my self esteem for a moment, but soon those feelings went away. At 13, I was introduced to drugs. I immediately felt that I had found a way to create feelings of power and control in me. The more I used, or the more powerful a substance I used, the better I felt. By the time I was 16, I was using the most powerful drugs around. For the first 3 years, I enjoyed it. Gradually, one hit at a time, drugs became my higher power. Day by day, I was getting older and weaker, while the drugs seemed younger and stronger. I started thinking about controlling my drug use. On every attempt, the drugs defeated me. I could use, or I would use, to sleep. Instead, I stayed awake. I would use to stay awake. Instead, I'd fall asleep. I would use to find friends. Instead, I'd find enemies. I used to fight. Instead, I made up. Everything was controlled by the drugs. I felt shame and guilt and would regularly judge and punish myself. Denial, justification, and dishonesty created distance between me, my family, and the rest of society. My feelings of anger, resentment, and hatred fueled my justification for using more and more. I have experienced much hardship due to my addiction. Many different jails, mental hospitals, suicide attempts, theft, and selling of my family's belongings. One of the most painful experiences happened during the 1984 war. At that time, many everyday products were rationed, and we had to use government issued coupons for our purchases. On a number of occasions, I sold the rations of my baby's powdered milk on the black market and used the money for drugs. After getting high, I would cry and beat myself up Sometimes I would feed my baby only sugar water. My heavy using lasted 20 years. For the last 17, I was looking for a cure. That I couldn't find, until finally, in that detention house, I was introduced to NA. Upon my arrival at my first NA meeting, the greeter welcomed me with a warm and loving hug. I was lost and confused. It had been a long time since anyone hugged me, even my mother. I thought, these people are lunatics. They don't know who they are dealing with. I was looking for differences and finding faults with the meeting. Eventually, there was a part of the meeting where people announced their clean time. This is not possible. They're all lying. They're all high. My head was screaming. Even in prison, I would use anything I could find to get high. That was and will remain one of the most sacred days of my life. They told me the newcomer is the most important person in an NA meeting. For the next 2 years, I was the most important person in every meeting. Since it took 2 years for me to get clean, I thought that was different. I thought maybe there was another way for me to use if I could change the type or amount or the timing of my drug use. I continued struggling until the miracle happened for me as well. One day, on the way to my connection, something amazing happened. Someone turned around and went to visit one of my NA friends instead. We talked only for a few minutes about ordinary stuff, but when I left, I felt different. My obsession had disappeared. To this day, I don't know what happened in those few minutes. What I do know is that was the beginning of my recovery. All that I had done was continue going to meetings wholeheartedly, asking God to help me stay clean, and I kept in touch with other NA members. Against my every belief that this program would not work for me, it did. I started feeling intense hope instead of my usual obsession to use. It seemed like I had become a different person with a new set of feelings who was about to begin a new life. I felt excited and happy, and the world seemed beautiful to me. That same night, I got a sponsor and told him that I wanted to work the first step right away. He told me to read the first step a few times so we could talk about it later. I stayed up until morning and read all the basic text. Starting the next day, I carried the book around with me and continued reading it. Every time I reviewed the first step, something new would become clear. I couldn't believe that I could stop using, but the truth was that I no longer had an obsession to use. I spent most of my time with people in the fellowship and became more and more hopeful. I could truly laugh and feel joy. I looked at the sky and it seemed that I hadn't really noticed it in years. Every day I shaved, put on clean clothes, and was the first one at the meeting. I shared at the meeting and afterwards would spend time with other addicts. I no longer denied my problems because I felt that everyone would be okay. I would call my sponsor over 10 times a day. He was patient and treated me like a good friend. It was, it was a curious thing. For the first time, I was willing to listen to someone unconditionally. I had become teachable and I kept feeling and getting better. After a couple of months clean, I ran into one of my old using buddies. We would talk for hours when we were using, but this time we had nothing to say to each other. It was as if we were strangers. From the beginning of my sponsor, sorry, From the beginning, my sponsor made me aware that was only the beginning and that I needed to get into action. He told me that to stay clean, I need to work the steps, go to meetings, and be of service. At first, I couldn't understand that he was telling me I was clean, and many years of trying, I felt happy. However, after a short time, I realized that if I didn't make some major changes in my life soon, I would go back to where I was before. Today, I believe that a person who is clean and has worked the steps can possibly be more dangerous than someone using. When I started service work, I realized how sick I was. Attention seeking, self centeredness, selfishness, resentment, the desire for revenge, and many of my other character defects got in the way and caused problems for other members. One day at a time, our fellowship continued its growth, and I grew up and got wiser as well. A little at a time, I got in touch with humility, God centeredness, acceptance, forgiveness, and other spiritual principles. At that time, in Tehran, there was only two groups, and each met 3 times a week. I helped out by making tea, setting up chairs, and cleaning up afterwards. I started feeling that this was my home, and every time a newcomer arrived, I would go talk to him and share my experience. I noticed the positive effects of my words, and that made me feel good. I felt useful. People started asking me to sponsor them, and my sponsor suggested that I work some more steps before doing so. He said that, meanwhile, I should continue to share my experience in recovery and with others. Gradually, my working the steps, sharing, and working with newcomers, the spirit of service grew in me. I became thirsty for service in NA. Today, I recognize that service is my responsibility and my way of appreciating the fellowship. My relationship with God improved. In the beginning, I simply prayed and thanked God for being clean, and that was enough. And that was enough to give me a sense of serenity. Through working the steps, I realized that as I kept changing and getting better, the world around me also kept changing for the better, and that God was with me on this path of transformation. I started to know myself and become familiar with my strengths and weaknesses. My relationship with people and my community kept improving. I found the ability to resolve my problems one by one. I experienced a new sense of peace and freedom by practicing the spiritual principles contained in the steps, and that helped me to be more successful in my work. My faith helped me to recognize that my pain or defeats were possible lessons for future success. Prayer and meditation became part of my life. The first time I worked the 11th step, my sponsor asked me if I'd ever thought about what God's will was for me. After a few days of considering this, the answer came to me that God's will for me was to serve others. When I shared this with my sponsor, he smiled and told me that now I was ready for the 12th step. I believe that I truly became a member of NA once I worked the 12 steps. My sponsor suggested that to work the 12th step, I should increase my knowledge of how the program works. He encouraged me to attend meetings, focus on the traditions and concepts of service, I read service material. I gained a better understanding of spiritual principles and a better understanding of my defects, which were obstacles in the way of my sincere service. Practicing spiritual principles has helped my life outside of the fellowship as well, to the point that today I am an economically and socially successful person. The NA program offers us only one promise: freedom from active addiction. Every day I thank God I have received this and so much more. Today I do not need to use drugs and do not need to die. I feel a loving God with me at every moment. I feel good about others and myself. I no longer need to seek approval or recognition. Servicing NA is my way of repaying the fellowship. That saved me from certain death, and doing service is part of my amends to society for the damage that I caused during my using. Service is gratitude in action, and it gives me a feeling of usefulness that is extremely meaningful to me. Every day I ask God to give me the power to carry out His will. Wow. Good for him. Way to go. What a good reading. What a good story. It was a good story. What do you guys think of this story? Feel free to leave a comment in the comments. And if you're liking the channel or me, if you want to hit like and subscribe, that would be awesome, fantastic. I have a goal of trying to reach 1,000 subscribers or get 1,000 members in my community. We all want to share some good words, and that'd be so amazing if I had 1,000 subscribers in my on my channel. That'd be a thousand people potentially in recovery with me, or who I've been able to share with. Well, once again, thank you everybody for joining me today. I appreciate every one of you. And if nobody's told you today that they love you, well, I love you, and we will see you again real soon. Take care now. Bye.